This episode, we're taking a jump back to the decade that we were born.
The best decade for horror in general, in my opinion.
The very tail end of the 1970s. We're talking about the 1979 Alien. It's not Canadian, which is weird.
Yeah, that's strange. I mean, this is the new year and we're not doing a Canadian movie? What happened?
Well, the one we did last year at the beginning of the year was horrible, so let's not do that ever again.
Terrible. So last year, for 2016, we brought you guys down, in terms of movies and what we talked about. We just kind of brought it down to the lowest of the low. And so now we're going to give you a really, really good movie, something that one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best horror movies ever filmed. And I do say horror movie, and I know that a lot of people kind of talk about, well, it's more science fiction or whatever. But no, my friends, this is a classic horror flick. This is a haunted house film. A haunted house based on a spaceship with a monster running loose. I mean, this is clearly horror from the get-go.
I have never thought of it that way before.
Yeah, I totally see the original movie as a complete and total full-on horror flick. Now the sequels, that's another story. I know Aliens, that's more of a sci-fi action kind of thing with horror elements. But the original movie, it's definitely, in my opinion, a horror film.
Now, do you actually remember the first time you saw Alien?
I do.
Do you?
And it's kind of funny you ask. All of these classic horror films always relate back to somehow my mom telling me about them. She was telling me about this movie she had seen late at night, and she got up to the scene where, is Dallas the guy with the beard? That's his name, right?
Yeah.
I remember.
Yep.
Okay. Do you remember his death, where he's like going through the tunnel, and then like he shines a light, and then like the alien pops out?
Yep.
And that's like, okay. She got to that scene, and that was it. And then she fell asleep because it was on like really late at night or something. And my mom was telling me about this movie, and she's like, "Oh, it's really good," and all about it. And I'm like, I gotta see that. And then like somehow we ended up at the video store and rented it on beta. And I remember watching it, and I was flipping hooked on this movie. I must have been like 4th grade, 5th grade, somewhere around there, I'm guessing. No, you know what? It might have been earlier, because it was right before Aliens was released. Because Aliens came out in 86. So it had to have been like 3rd grade that I saw this movie. 3rd or 4th grade. Because I saw Aliens in the movie theater. I saw it at the Dunes. And I remember at first not knowing, going into it, is this the sequel to that movie I saw that I really liked? And then, pretty quickly I realized it was. Because back then, like for me in my child head, like if it didn't say like Alien Part 2, I wasn't sure if that, like, because it was called Aliens, I didn't know if that meant that, oh, it's a sequel, or if it's something totally different. I saw it then, and then like it's like shortly after, I remember we went to the movie theater and saw Aliens, and I was like, holy crap, this is great too. And so like, yeah, but I remember renting Alien, the original, like many, many times at the video store. And so yeah, I do. To answer your question, yes, I do remember the first time I saw it, and I loved it.
I don't remember the first time I saw this. I do remember the first time I saw Aliens, and I don't know why I remember this, but there was a set of twins that lived not too far away from you that me and one of our good friends back in those days, I guess...
Oh, are we talking female twins?
Yes.
Okay.
And we would, I guess, in today's terms, it would probably be termed as harassed. But we would call them all the time and stuff. And anyway, one of them was like in choir or played an instrument or something, and she was part of, it must have been like a 4th of July celebration or something. And it was at like in this like bandstand at one of the parks in town, and we went up to like hang out and watch the music. and then that got over with, and then went back home. It might not have been 4th of July, but it was something. Memorial Day or Labor Day or something. And we had cable at the time, and it was going to be like, it was the Friday night movie or the Saturday night movie, one of the two. And I remember going home and had already got the permission to watch it before it came on, and sat down and watched it and was in love with it, and didn't even realize that there was a movie before that at that time. But I watched Aliens and was like, oh, this is cool. But I don't remember the first time I saw Alien. It had to have been probably teens or 20s, I would assume. You watch this movie and then you watch the later sequels to it, and none of those hold up at all. I mean, other than the fact that they have the same xenomorph in them, I wouldn't even put Alien and Aliens on the same level at all, which I know there's a lot of people that say Aliens is a better movie, but to me, there's no comparison at all. This movie is phenomenal for a lot of reasons. And now that you said the whole haunted house thing, now I can't get that out of my head. And I'm like, oh, it is totally a haunted house story.
Yeah, it really is. And I think, I mean, I love this film. I love the creature design. I love the whole concept of the movie. I love how it's kind of like a bash on corporations. You know, it's like kind of like how they basically made this crew expendable. And then they're basically, you know, there to go pick up this possible dangerous threat, and they don't really care if anything happens to them. And I remember, and once they find out, you know, like Ripley finds out, like on the computer screen, that, you know, the crew is expendable, and that, you know, that's all it's about, is just like, we don't care what happens to you, we just want this thing. I mean, it's such a great movie. Another thing I love about this movie too, which you don't really see in today's films, is that, you know, they created this awesome kick-ass alien design. I mean, the monster looks incredible. I can't think of anything more original than that. But the way Ridley Scott, the director, shot it, he shoots it in such a way that you never really fully see it until like closer towards the end. And even then, you know, it's sort of like kind of hidden, and, you know, so it's always sort of a kind of a puzzle in your mind of like, what does this thing look like? And then, you know, later films, they expose it a lot more, but in that original movie, I mean, it was kind of hidden, you know.
Yeah, that too is I think one of the biggest differences between this original movie Alien and then the sequel Aliens is you had Ridley Scott, who directed this one, and then Aliens was directed by James Cameron, who, you know, those two guys, their directing styles are completely different. And like you had said, this one, even though it's often labeled as a science fiction movie, I too have always felt that this is a horror movie. Aliens,
yeah, totally,
is action movie more than it is anything else. I mean, that movie is just, granted, you know, you see the alien a lot more, and there's more of them, of course, but it's kind of like Terminator in a way. I mean, it's the same guy who directed it, but, you know, it's more action than anything else, even though sometimes people are like, oh, it's a horror movie. Aliens is an action movie. Plus, Aliens has Bill Paxton in it, who is like maybe one of the worst actors ever to walk on the face of the earth.
Yeah, the funny thing about Aliens too, it's kind of funny because James Cameron, he did Aliens in like 1986. You know, he wrote the script and directed it. And he also did, just like a year before that, he did Rambo: First Blood Part 2. Which I thought was kind of cool because it was like, or maybe he didn't. Well, he did write the script for Rambo, and he had the concept out there. I don't think he didn't direct it. I know that, and I think maybe the script was kind of taken away from him. But he kind of took that, like that first movie, the Rambo movie, First Blood, and then took it into this whole new direction with Rambo First Blood Part 2, this full-on action, explosions and all kinds of craziness. And it's kind of like he did the same thing with Aliens, where he kind of just took the source material and then just kind of went balls to the wall with it. Now, I think Aliens is an incredible film. That's one of the best sequels ever made, in my opinion. But yeah, this original Alien movie, yeah, this is a really good horror film. This is definitely in my top 10 list of best horror movies of all time.
This one goes back to kind of what we were talking about a couple of episodes ago, or maybe it must have been a couple of episodes ago when we were kind of talking about people who were in horror movies early on in their career and then went on to great success. And Sigourney Weaver would be one of those characters for sure.
Oh, yeah.
She was in this. Well, she was in all of them, but all the original ones anyway, I should say, not the prequel. But Ripley, who's a character in this movie, and then she went on to, of course, to do Ghostbusters and then a bunch of other stuff. And now it's kind of funny nowadays when you see Sigourney Weaver in a movie, she's kind of always like the older female villain, some sort.
What has she done lately? She was in Galaxy Quest. I remember that.
I think she's been in
that was about
stuff since then.
That was about 10 years ago, probably.
Oh, yeah, if not even that. She was in Finding Dory this year. She was in The Cabin in the Woods in 2012.
I didn't like that movie.
I did not like that movie either. And I think it's safe to say we're never going to do that movie on this show.
Yeah, let's not.
Then the other guy you had from this, Tom Skerritt, who I think was probably the other most recognizable person from this movie, who played Dallas.
What was he in?
So he was in Top Gun, A River Runs Through It, Up in Smoke, and he is an old man still. He's still kicking, but he's 83 years old.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Good grief, how old was he in Alien?
It was probably in his... Let's see, probably 45, something like that.
Good grief.
Yeah.
Wow, I had no idea he was that old.
See, this is something that one of my friends had said the other day in reference to the celebrity deaths in 2016 and stuff, which in reality, there probably wasn't any more celebrity deaths than there normally are in 2016. However, you're more affected by it because you're more familiar with the people that are dying, because you're getting older, but the people that are dying are freaking old.
Yeah, they are, I guess.
I mean, even though we were talking about Carrie Fisher before we started recording this episode and stuff, and she wasn't young by any stretch of the imagination. She wasn't old necessarily either, but she was 60. But also, too, you got to think of what kind of stuff has she done to herself since she's was a kid to now. I mean, if you heard her talk recently, you could definitely tell she's a smoker, or at least she used to be a smoker. And what other kind of stuff are you doing? But some of these people that are kicking it, when you're getting all tore up about a 85-year-old who kicks the bucket. Well, he was 85, dude. I mean, yeah, he started in a movie that you liked in 1982, but yeah, it's
wow.
Yeah, and me and you have talked about that before too when we talk about some of these. When we're talking about these movies that are, from the 70s or 80s, or even while we did this with Nancy Loomis when we went to Flashback last weekend. And you're like, oh man, she's an old lady.
I know.
Well, I know. Yeah, she is an old lady because that movie that she starred in was 40 years ago.
That is crazy. Another thing too I want to mention too while we're kind of on that thing. I don't know if you've noticed this yet, but there's a theme in every one of our episodes. We always bring up John Carpenter some way, somehow.
What?
Well, Alien. Well, screenwriter Dan O'Bannon of this film was part of one of the first things he did was Dark Star, which was the science fiction comedy film that was directed by John Carpenter. So that's kind of interesting that Alien, has that sort of connection there as well.
I thought maybe you were going to say that Alien was influenced by Halloween.
No. Nope.
That would be almost as ridiculous as Halloween being influenced by Black Christmas.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Oh, let's not even go into Black Christmas. Ugh. Horrible movie.
I cannot believe that movie has the kind of following that it does.
I don't either, because nothing happens in that movie. That's
it's horrible.
One of the worst
I don't know how, but I follow a bunch of like horror folks on Instagram, and not necessarily. I mean, I do follow some people that are like horror icons and stuff, but just horror fans in general. And I don't know how many people like in the past couple of weeks are like, "Oh, sitting down with Black Christmas," and I'm like, is somebody making you do that? Why are you doing that? That sounds absolutely horrible.
Yeah, you know. To be honest with you, I do kind of have an interest now to check out the remake, because it's like one of those movies where the original was so terrible that like the remake, I mean, it can't be worse. So maybe they like do something cool with it. So I'm kind of want to check it out just to see, like, because some of those like websites that I go to, they're like saying, yeah, the original and the remake are great. Now, the original, I can't agree with that, but like if I want to see what the remake's about and see if maybe if there's anything cool about it. So that's
had to put that
kind of on my list of things to do
for next year.
For December.
Yeah. Speaking of cool Christmas movies, sorry guys, I know we're in the middle of January here. I watched a movie off of a recommendation of a cousin of mine. He had asked me at a family Christmas, he was looking for some movies to watch, and I was like, "Oh, what are you into?" And he was like, "Oh, kind of like in these. Right now, I'm in these like offbeat, foreign, like sci-fi kind of low budget movies." And I gave him a couple of suggestions of movies that I had seen recently. Then he was like, "Oh yeah, I watched that movie. That was cool and stuff." And he was like, "Hey, you ever into like foreign horror?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah. I mean, some of the best modern horror movies are foreign movies. My favorite vampire movie of all time is a Swedish movie from 2008. He's like, "Oh, because I just happened upon this movie. I think it was Finnish, I think is what it was." And he was like, "It's called Rare Exports. Look it up." I was like, "Okay."
I've heard of that one.
And that's actually when me and you were talking yesterday about Shudder.
Yeah.
That's why I signed up for Shudder, because it was on Shudder, and I was like, "Oh, cool." And so, not to go too far off track from Alien, but so basically what it is these kids live in this little tiny town, and there's this government in town. I think it's the American government's in town, and they're trying to exhume Santa Claus from his grave.
Nice. I really like it. It's a classic.
And I'm not going to give too much more away from it, but it is kind of a Krampus type storyline to it. And I think we'll save that one too for next year for Christmas time, because that one was one of those movies like where you watch and you're like, that was amazing when you get done with it. Like, it's really good. And it's one of those too it's like not everybody in it, but one of the main characters is this like 12-year-old boy. So,
that's cool. Yeah, I like to check that out then.
Yeah, it was a good movie.
I think I heard about that one on a few websites that people were talking about.
Yeah, after I finished it and stuff, I was like, "Oh man, I've never heard of that movie before. That was great." And then it was one of those things, and this happens a lot, but you've never heard of nothing, never heard of it, never heard of it, never heard of it, and then you become aware of it, and then you hear of it all the time. Because ever since I've seen it, like I've seen it like pop up on a bunch of different places like 10 times. And I'm like, how have I never heard of this movie before? But it was great.
That's funny.
So we should probably go ahead and kind of, I mean, if you haven't seen Aliens at this point, you're probably a lost cause, really. I mean, there's not much else.
Yeah, this is This is such a classic American film now at this point. I think everybody's got some kind of idea of what this movie's about.
Yeah, you've pretty much already given it away anyway, or not given it away, but the basic gist of it is you have this group of people that are on a spaceship who are in whatever you want to call that, whatever they call that in movies, that cryotonic sleep or whatever they call it. And then they wake up because they're getting close to this planet, which turns out this is the same planet that was visited in Prometheus, which is the prequel to this movie, which came out in 2012. These guys all work for this corporation, and they're not really sure what they're doing. They're just on a mission. And as it's made very obvious in some of the earlier scenes in the movie, you have two of the guys that are like, "Hey, we need to get more money. We're doing just as important work as everybody else on here. How come everybody else is getting more money than us?" And then it turns out, they're on this mission. But I think probably the most iconic scene in the movie is they do a exploration mission on this planet. They find these like pods, and this thing pops out of a pod and attaches to a guy's helmet. It turns out to be what is always referred to nowadays as a face hugger.
Which is such a cool concept.
But
that whole idea of like getting impregnated by the face hugger. That is so cool. That is incredibly original and creative filmmaking in my opinion. This
scene in this movie though is the one thing that does kind of bug me, and it's because I'm older now. And so you have this group of people that are whatever millions of miles away from home, and they're on this mission, and you have this alien creature attaches itself to this guy's face, and you have the officer of the ship who's played by Sigourney Weaver, and she's like, "Oh, you can't let him on the ship. He's got to be in quarantine. You can't let him on the ship. You can't." And everybody else is like, "Screw that. We're letting him on the ship." And so then they let him on the ship, and then this thing finally gets off of his face, whatever it was, a day or 2 days later, and everybody's like, "Oh, yeah, he's fine. Don't worry about it. He's okay." And I'm like, I know this is a movie, but I don't think that would actually happen. Even in the 70s, that wouldn't have happened. But I think that leads to the most iconic scene in the movie is, they're having this meal, and he all of a sudden starts like choking on something, and then it sprawls out on the table, and then he has the chest burst, and then you have the little cute little guy, little alien pops out of his chest.
The chest bursting scene, in my opinion, is the equivalent of the shower scene from Psycho. It is one of those scenes that, like you said, it's iconic. It's the thing you remember the most of the film. It's shocking, and even now watching it, it's kind of shocking. I don't know. There's kind of a realism to that, the way they filmed it. And although, yeah, when you see the alien, and maybe now you'll kind of look at it and kind of question, is that real, or is this? And obviously, it's not real, but I mean, like, maybe you're wondering, like, is it really kind of, am I able to suspend my disbelief while I watch this? And I really think that film is still, that scene especially is so effective. I mean, because it really feels like there is a living organism that is coming out of this guy's chest, and I just think it's so well done that, yeah, I would put this right up there with the Psycho shower scene. Trying to think of another, or the Texas Chainsaw Massacre meat hook scene. It's just one of those scenes that it really sticks with you for the rest of the film.
It is still, even to this day and age, it's still pretty well done.
It is.
I think one of the things that I noticed the most recent time that I watched this movie about that particular scene is the blood splatter that occurs when it happens.
Yeah.
It kind of all over the place. And then you get the one, the other female, not Ripley, but the other female character that was in the movie, she gets like blood splattered on her face a little bit, and you're like, ah. But yeah, and then they're off to the chase, trying to get this thing, figure out what to do with it.
My favorite death scene, actually, in this movie, which I think is probably one of the best shot scenes, is the death of Brett when he's going after the cat. And because it's shot so well, I think Ridley Scott does such a great job of just giving you an idea that there's what the alien looks like without really showing too much. And that whole scene where he's like bending down trying to get the little cat to come out of the hiding spot, and behind him you see like the alien moving and coming down, and then you just, and that whole scene to me is just so well shot because there's so much suspense in it. And I think that stuff like that is why Ridley Scott kind of got the reputation he has of being one of the best directors of his era.
One of the other scenes that's pretty cool is when they're trying to get the face hugger off of the guy, and they like cut him a little bit with the scalpel, and that blood drips onto the floor and eats its way through the first floor, eats its way through another floor, and so on and so forth. And then they're all kind of like,
yeah,
oh, man.
Right.
Well, now we're screwed. That's right. We can't do anything to it.
That's right. There's the acid for blood.
Yeah, which I always thought was pretty cool. And I don't know if it's necessarily unique to this or not, but I always thought it was kind of a cool story.
Well, that was kind of the thing, is like now that with Prometheus and everything, that basically we've kind of come to the conclusion that these aliens, these xenomorphs, that's as they're called, were basically like weapons, and I mean like perfect biological weapons. Like if you take these things and infest a planet with them, like that, they're going to completely annihilate all living creatures there. And there's no way to really destroy them because they have acid for blood. So if you shoot them or you blow them up or you try to cut them, then you get sprayed with acid. So I mean, they're just absolutely a dangerous biological weapon. And isn't that kind of like Prometheus was sort of like the that's the prequel to this film that kind of explains that basically they were designed to be, they had these things so that they could like basically take over, colonize a planet by just destroying all life forms with them.
Right.
With this franchise, you get the first two movies that are just great, Alien and Aliens, and then everything after that just never worked. And it's funny because Alien 3 originally, the original script was supposed to be based on Earth, which would have made sense and which could have been, I think, if done right, would have been the best concept for the film. But then they went instead, and they were going to do a big budget movie on Earth and all that stuff, and then they went and kind of scaled back and did what we now have as Alien 3, and it was kind of more like a try to capture the feel of the original film, and it, to me, it wasn't really well done. And then everything ever since then, it's just been disappointment after disappointment. So to me, it's like this series is just kind of fallen away. It's kind of crapped out on us. But I do like, the thing though about it though, when Prometheus was first introduced and they were talking about how, okay, Ridley Scott's going back to the alien universe and he's going to, expand upon the engineers and all of that stuff. I thought that was really cool because it would kind of like, we were talking about with Rogue One recently, like expanded universe kind of stuff. And in a way, that's sort of what these Prometheus films are. They're sort of like the alien expanded universe, if you will, where you kind of go into different elements of that universe and that storyline and those characters and stuff. And so in that sense, I think it's kind of cool. I just don't think that they've really found the right format or structure for the story to really work.
Yeah, I for one actually liked Prometheus quite a bit. I think I saw Prometheus on the big screen like 4 times. Yeah,
I saw it once, and I saw it in 3D, and I don't like 3D movies because I always get headaches, but I was disappointed overall.
Yeah, I really liked it. Well, I guess that probably wraps it up for this one then. So go out there. Be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram. You can find us on both. Just look us up, Horror Heads, on both. The two of us, I think, give Alien a pretty big thumbs up from both of us.
Oh, absolutely.